Hey there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Today I'm out in the garden. It's a beautiful day. It's right at the end of April. And so we're about 3 weeks here in Saskatchewan, Canada, at least the southern part, from our average last frost date. And this is a great time to get a few plants put out in the garden. So I have a few more cold tolerant varieties of things that can go out. And then I'm also going to be planting seeds because that's the best thing to be planting this time of year. And the head gardener has come to help, I guess. So you approve of this process? So you don't have to have a thermometer to know if it's time to put your seeds in the ground, but it can be helpful. I have a chart here that I've just printed off the internet from Giant Veggie Garden, and it gives me a really good listing of the temperatures that seeds need to have before they can be planted in the garden and to have like ideal germination temperatures. The things we're going to be putting in the ground today mostly can get started around 40 Fahrenheit, which I think is about 5 Celsius, up to about 60 Fahrenheit. Their ideal ranges of temperature are, of course, closer to like 75. This is an American list, but they will still germinate and do well, and they'll sit in the soil and be fine until they're ready to germinate. They won't just rot away. And I brought my thermometer out. This is just my compost thermometer, and the temperature's going up now because I'm holding it, but it says that my soil is around 15 Celsius. It's a good time to put any of these things that I'm going to be putting in. I'm also going to get a few of my crops that I've started inside planted out as well. They've all had some time outside over the last week or so, just slowly, for a little bit at a time in the daytime. Start them in a less sunny spot and slowly give them more sun every day. Now these were in my greenhouse, so I wasn't as careful about that, but I wanted them to get out in the wind and have access to wind, and that will toughen them up and make them more ready to go out. And they can take pretty cold temperatures. They've been out in some like close to freezing temperatures already. So even though it might still freeze here, they can be out. And if we're going to get close to freezing, then I will put a little layer of frost cloth on them just to give them that extra protection because they are grown plants. Yeah. And if you're just putting your seeds in, then you don't need to worry about that frost protection. They'll be just fine without it. I actually already have a few radishes growing in a raised planter, some carrots that have started to germinate, and I just recently planted my parsnips as well. Those are all things that can be planted out now. Anything that's a root crop can go in the ground once the ground is workable and usable. Usually it's fine here in Saskatchewan, Canada. Once it's thawed out enough and it's not super soggy wet, you can put your root crops, get them started. I also want to start a few lettuces. Now, some lettuces are more susceptible to cold than others, but when you're just going from seed, it's usually fine to get them in early, and by the time they're coming up, it should be safe for them and they should be acclimated then. Onions are a good one to put out as long as you're not getting a deep freeze. Cabbages, cauliflower, broccoli, a lot of those cole crops or brassicas are very happy to be out in the cool weather. They prefer it. And I find celery does well in the cooler weather as well. So I'll be putting my celery out. But I think that pretty much covers the cool crops for in the garden. So I'm just going to be going around kind of picking what I feel like putting in, and I'll share that with you as I go. So I'm going to be starting over here. This is in the back northeast corner of my garden. You might be able to see here I have a little bit of a structure. I've put up my melon trellis, and I'm going to be actually growing some smaller squash on this side of it and some melons on the other side of it this year, and see how that does for me. But I thought underneath the trellis in this small 2-foot by 8-foot bed would be a great place to get some lettuces and spinach started, and I'll put a little bit of radish in here as well. And they'll be able to grow here before I get the squash going, and I might even be able to keep going in the front of this bed here with the lettuce and the spinach, and that they'll be a little bit more shaded perhaps from the vines growing on the trellis, and they might be able to keep going just that little bit longer into the season that way. So that's my plan for those. So I do have some lettuces here. Now these are a pretty thin leaf lettuce, some of them, so I'm not sure how well they'll do with the cold. We'll find out, but I can cover them when it gets really cold out. But they have been out in the greenhouse and they have been getting down like around 5 Celsius or a little cooler at night, and they've done quite well already. And there's one sad little Escalade spinach plant back in here. So I have Eucapa lettuce, white Boston lettuce. Actually, do I have any Eucapa? It looks like the Eucapa didn't even come up in here. White Boston and Little Gem, which is a cause lettuce. And then I've also pulled out some seeds to do some Barilla, red salad bowl, butter crunch, and drunken woman. And then I grabbed a little bit of Bloomsdale long-standing spinach. And I haven't chosen my radishes yet, but I'll get to those. The first thing I think I'll do is just put a row of lettuce back, the full-grown lettuce and spinach towards the back. And I should be able to get those harvested fairly soon before I need to be putting the squash in. And the squash will still be fairly small plants when they first go in, so it should work out well that way. And then I'll do the seeds in front of that, and then just a little bit of radish in front of that. I think that'll make some good successions that way. I don't have a tag for the lettuce, but I think it'll be fine. I have these little tags for the ones I'm growing right now. And we'll just get the little gems out. Oh, maybe there's just 2 in here. The white Boston was taking over so much I didn't even realize what I did or didn't have, I guess. So then we'll have our white Boston lettuce after that. And these are shorter day lettuces. Look at the roots on that white Boston. It's just taken over the pack. So since there's no Eucapa, I'll grab my Eucapa seed pack out, and I'll do some of that as well in the front here. And then this little lonely Escalade spinach. Some pretty nice roots on there too. I don't know if you can see them. Just pop these in the ground. It won't take much. I'm gonna go, you can see how they were growing in the tray there. I'll just bury them probably up to here, so they'll get buried a little bit deeper and that won't hurt them at all. Just go down. Just give them a little extra support. And there's actually a couple of lettuces here, so I'm going to pull them apart. I thought I had them thinned out, but looks like I didn't. So I'm just taking, you can see there's two plants here, so I'm just reaching between them, sticking my fingers down between them, and just pulling apart. And that'll rip some roots, that's fine. Won't hurt them. As long as you don't break off that main stem there. My spinach down. There. I don't actually have my drip turned on yet, but I do have my drip lines run. So when I turn that irrigation on, they'll be along this drip line, they'll be ready to go. And there is a little bit of moisture down in the soil here in these raised beds. Not a lot, but a little bit. So my first plants in the garden that I grew inside. I'm just going to put the Bloomsdale long-standing spinach back here. I'm just going to put kind of a little grid of spinach back there. There's spinach seed. I'll just drop a couple seeds in each hole. They go about 1/2 inch deep. And then I can thin them down to 1 after they've started. Did I do these? I don't think I did. Just cover those over. It's the Bloomsdale long-standing spinach. Now, I need to make sure I get some of this eucalyptus going because it takes a little bit longer for, as far as lettuce goes. What is it? 70-day maturity, but it's a nice large head iceberg lettuce, and that's a kind of lettuce that my husband really enjoys. So I like all the loose leaf lettuces, but he prefers more of an iceberg lettuce in the head. So I want to make sure I get some of that going. Make everybody happy, right? So I'm just gonna do a couple of rows for the lettuce, and I'll just go down and just do the varieties. I didn't bring tags with me, so I'm gonna have to refer back to the video and then make up some tags. But I do have a eucalyptus tag because I had it in the seed tray and the seed wasn't growing. So about 1/4 inch deep, and it says to sow thick. It might be a little thicker than I want, but so let's put a shorter season lettuce in between here. And this is the Barilla. And this is a butterhead lettuce. So it's thick leaves, it's nice lettuce. Thought I dropped a seed here, but I don't see it. And again, I'm just gonna sow it fairly thick, and I can thin them out afterward. And just about 1/4 inch deep for those. So I put this little stick here. I don't know if you can see it, but hopefully that'll remind me that's where the Barilla ends. Grab another little stick. And we'll do some red salad bowl. So it's just a loose leaf type lettuce, if I can get into it. And it's nice when you have, at least I like to have a little bit of color in my salads, so it's nice to have some different colored leaves and a little bit different texture. So the other 2 seeds were coated, that's why they were the little white round balls. This is just naked seed here, so we'll just sprinkle it along my little path. And being that it's a leaf lettuce, I'm actually going to do another little row in the middle. They can usually handle being a little closer together. And this, I think, was 50 days. Yeah, 50 days to maturity for the red salad bowl. And another little twig. I'm running out of room. Do the butter crunch. This is a 60 to 70 day. We'll put it right in here. Not a lot of room left here. We'll have to move the drunken woman up beside the rest here with the radishes. And again, this is just regular seed. It's not coated or anything. And I've made myself 3 little trenches. You could just sprinkle it all over the ground and just work it in. Because again, it's just, I think that was just a leaf lettuce that was planting there. Oh, butter crunch, no. The butter crunch is a heading lettuce, so I guess I should have left more room for it there. Got carried away. So I think I'll put the drunken woman just along the very front row here. and I'll just make a little patch of it. I've never tried this lettuce yet, but I wanted to give it a try. And I don't know, this doesn't say what the days maturity is on it, so I guess we'll just find out. I'm just going to sprinkle it along here. And I'll just put the radish in down at the other end here. So let's see what kind of radishes we want. A champion, which I think is what I planted already. Cherry bell. It's turnips. I thought I had one more variety here. Maybe not. Oh, just another champion. So I guess champion and cherry bell. So let's start with a row of champion, and then we'll do some cherry bell after. So this is the champion, and they're just going to go down here. And I think you're supposed to have like 1/2 inch spacing or something, but I always just sprinkle them in. 1/2 to 1 inch spacing is what you're supposed to do for radishes. Just sprinkle them in and I'll thin them out after. Here's the cherry bell. I'll need to water these all in quite well just to make sure the soil is nice and damp right at the seed level there. Like I said, there's a little bit of moisture down below, like when I put the plants in, there's moisture down in the root zones, but I want some right at the top where the seeds are right now. And I should be seeing some growth pop up out of these seeds, out of all of these seeds, anytime between like 5 days to, I think, about 2 weeks for some of the lettuce, but most things here should be up within the week. Being that it's still a little bit cooler out, it may take a little bit longer to get germination, so don't panic if you plant your seeds when it's cool out and you don't have the germination times that you expect. They're probably still coming, it's just that it's a little bit cool yet for them. I gave you the approximate maturity times for the lettuce. The radish is a really fast germinator. It's a great seed to grow for kids if they like to see things come up quickly and mature quickly and be able to harvest it. Within a month, you should usually be able to have your seeds planted and their plants harvested with radish. So it's a great one to start kids with if you like. And they're great raw, but they're also great if you cut them up and just roast them in the oven with a little bit of like olive oil, salt and pepper at around 400 degrees for 10 minutes or so. Really nice that way as well. So a couple ways you can serve them for kids to let them try them out. I'm going to get my watering can, I'm going to water these, and then I'm actually going to put a little net tunnel over this stuff just to make sure that the winds don't get too high. That'll protect them a little bit from the sun as they're getting used to being out full days like this, and more than anything else to protect them from the birds. Lots of hungry birds out right now. There's not a lot of green things out right now, and that'll just keep the birds from picking at them. And the rabbits. I think I have the rabbits blocked out of my yard this year, but I'm sure they're figuring out a way to get in here again. So I'm going to go get a net and a watering can and finish up this bed. So just water everything in really well. And then if you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know I love these hammocks, tunnels. I use them a lot. And this one is just a wider mesh, but it'll just fit down. Over my plants and my seeds. And give them that extra protection they're going to need for a little while. There. My first bed is planted up. Now, of course, I still need the squash to go in later on, but 3 weeks before my average frost date, and I have a bed full of seeds and a few plants already. That's awesome. Let's see if we can get the some of the cabbage and broccoli going, and maybe some of the onions, and then I think I'm going to be out of time for today, but I think that's a good start to the season here. As we're going by, here's my parsnips. It just looks probably like a giant 2x6 board on some vermiculite right now, but that's what it is for now. But there's parsnip seeds under there, and the vermiculite and 2x4 are just helping to hold a little bit of moisture, because parsnips can take several weeks to germinate. And there's a few volunteer tulips that just come back in this bed every year. I don't, must come out of a pot I dumped one year. We're gonna go down, so we were over there. So we're going to go down to the other end. This bed's looking not quite as pretty as the rest. I do need to get some compost and that to cover that up. Right now it just has some of my rough homemade compost on it. That's where the cauliflower and broccoli are going to go. And then I think I have a few cabbage plants that I can put over there, and some onions as well. So, and my garlic is actually at the far end. That's what that post is across there, marking where the garlic is growing. Actually, I changed my mind. When I was grabbing those plants there, I saw the tags for the beets and the kale and that sitting there, and I thought, yeah, I actually want to get that stuff, the seeds going for that. The other plants are going, they do need to be planted out, but they can wait a couple more days. I'd like to get the seeds started for these other things, and that'll give me time to get some compost to the other bed. So let's do that instead. Okay, yeah, I think I need to get the seeds going. That's really what's been itching at me to get started, so I should just go with that and get the plants out later. So, like I said before, there's going to be some melons going on this trellis going up, but I have all this half of the bed over here to get some like kale, beets. What else did I have out here? Bok choy. Yeah, I think that's all. I'll have some celery in the front of this bed. I might get that done today. And I was debating, I didn't have turnips on I always draw a plan of where to put things in the garden, and I don't see turnips on it anywhere, so I might try a few turnips in the front there, in front of the melon. I don't know. We'll leave that for another day. But I'm going to get the kale started, and just get our... And I have a drip line going here, so I think I'll just plant it along there. And I have 3 kinds of kale, and then at the end of that row, I think I'll just do a little bit of the bok choy. Yeah, we'll do that. So the bok choy will grow and be pretty mature, I think, before the kale's done and ready. If I remember, yeah, the kale's like 60 to 75 days. The bok choy is like 50, I think, so get the bok choy going, and then the other plants going, and then we'll do the beets here, except that I have some fresh packed beets, which is actually grown for greens, and I think I'll just put those along the front of that bed there. There's a drip line in front of that trellis, so the same bed, but in front of the trellis on that side, and they are mature in about 30 days. They're kind of grown like a lettuce, so they should be well on their way to being pulled out by the time the melons are going in. So I'm just gonna toss that over there. Hopefully I don't forget about them. And let's get the kale going. So I have dinosaur kale, and this is a 65-day kale. Do not need that much. So let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 emitters. So let's bump this forward a bit, and then I'll put a dinosaur kale, a few seeds by that emitter, and put a few, that big of a hole, a few by that emitter, and that'll be our first dinosaur kale there. And then we'll get the red Russian, which is a 60-day kale, and we'll put a few seeds by this emitter and a few by this emitter. And I'll thin these out but I just need a couple plants of each will be enough. And then I can come in a few weeks after they start to grow, I can come in and do some on the other sides of the emitters, and that'll give me a bit of a succession of the kale going. So for this time we're on the inside of the emitter, and then I'll do the next succession on the outside of the emitter, and that should give them time and room to grow. And then I have dwarf green kale in here. So about 1/2 inch deep. And let's do the bok choy. I have one emitter left down here, and that's where I'm going to put that little divot there, a few seeds, scatter them in, cover them over. Okay, so for the beets, I'm just going to make them in rows, and I'll do the inside row here. Now, if you saw last year, I had voles in my garden, and they took out my beets from under the ground, so I had beautiful beet greens coming up everywhere, and then I pulled them up, they were hollowed right out. It was very sad, but I purchased some great traps. They worked well. I think I've gotten rid of the predator pressure there, so hopefully we can get some beautiful beets, because I love beets. So I have red ace, Merlin, and golden Detroit, and Boulder. So 55 days, 55 days, 53 days. The Merlin doesn't say on it, but I would assume that it's right around that 55-day range as well. Why do I have so many different varieties of beets? I don't know. Why do I have so many different varieties of lettuce? I just can't help myself. So the Boulder says seed as early as possible in spring and plant 1/2 inch deep in rows 18 inches apart, and then thin to 2 to 4 inches apart. And I would say most of the beets probably say the exact same thing, maybe not as early in spring as you can apart. These are brand new this year, so why would I finish my old seed before I start the new ones, if I can get into them? Okay. So again, they're 55 days. I have about 110 frost-free days, and they can be going obviously before my frost date. So I should be able to get close to 3 sowings if I'm careful and diligent about it. So I'm going to do just a few in this trench here, and then I'll come back again in about a month, do a sowing on the other side of the drip line, and then by the time these are harvested, I should be able to put more in and do another sowing over there. That's my plan for now. We all know that as the garden season goes on, sometimes we get busy and it doesn't always work out the way we had planned. But that's what I'm going to go with for now for plans. So I'm going to put a little stick again. Hopefully I can see that stick later. And we'll get some, we won't get golden Detroit, it's empty. Wow, that's too bad. We'll do some Merlin. So the exact same idea, I'm going to drop a couple of seeds, 5 centimeters apart, and then I'll come back and do another row over here in about a month. One more little row. Red ace. So I'm going to go over there, pop over there, get the fresh pack in, and then the beets are sown. So like I said, these are just more, oh, there's another weed. These are just more like for a salad green, and I'm just going to kind of go by each of the emitters and just put a little bit in, and that way they'll be stay nice and moist, and I won't plant too many. I only use so many beet greens at a time, right? So just do a little section here. Did I show you the beet seeds? Kind of a cool looking seed. There's usually a few seeds in each one of those little bundles there. I should maybe mark that I put some there. So there. Beets between those two sticks. Okay. Should we stick the celery in? I think we should. Celery likes a lot of moisture, and we'll be happy to get out of these little tiny trays that I have it in. So this is Tango celery. It's the only variety I grow. I grow it from seed, and I've been growing it for many years now. And I'm just going to put it across the front of this bed. Try and find an emitter. 2, 3. There's 3 emitters and 4 celery plants. So I'll put one more in the corner that might need a little extra babying. There is an emitter close to that corner, just not right at where I'll put the celery. So you see really nice roots, beautiful plants. I'll try and put down, I think it was the end of February. I'll write it on the screen when I planted these. And I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them a little deeper. I don't like to blanch my celery, so I know some people like to really pile up sand or soil or anything around their celery stalks, or put newspaper around the base to keep it nice and white. I let the sun touch my celery. I love that really strong celery flavor. If you like a milder celery, then you might want to blanch it, or like I said, wrap cones of newspaper or something around the plant as it grows. Not tight, so let some air get to it, I think would be best. I don't know, I don't do it, but then that'll give you a milder tasting celery. This will get nice and dark green, but it won't be bitter if it gets enough water. It's when it doesn't get enough water, that's when it gets a real bitter flavor. At least that's what I find with the Tango celery. So as long as you're watering it well, you should get a nice celery flavor. And I just go along, obviously once they're more mature, but I'll just take a stalk and I just pull it down and snap it off at the base of the plant and harvest it that way, and let the plant keep growing until the end of the season, and then I'll cut the plants right off, chop them up, and put them in the freezer. But I just use them as cut and come again, basically, for the main part of the season until it's too cold for them to stay in the garden. The last one will go over here, and there is an emitter right here, so I've just kind of bumped it back from the other rows just to get it closer to the emitter. Cover it up. I just grabbed some hot caps to put over the celery. The celery should be fine, but I mean, we aren't past our average loss frost date. We could still get some really cold nights here in Saskatchewan, Canada. So these will just give them a little bit of protection on the cooler nights to hold the heat in. And when we get the warm days and the really sunny days, I'll lift them up, take them off, so the celery doesn't cook in here, but it'll just go on top. But hopefully I have room to get them on here. And then they just have holes down in the bottom of these. I can just pin them down. Or if it's really windy, I might have to put a rock on top. But they have holes in the top. Most of them still have little dials to turn to open and close the holes, but I'm just going to leave them open. Like I said, they can handle quite a bit of cold. This is just kind of extra, you know, when you're putting your babies out for the first time. Kind of want to give them a little extra protection sometimes. This one doesn't fit perfectly. It's hanging over a bit, but that should be fine. Just give it a little bit. And I need a couple more pins, but that'll just keep them a little bit more protected on the cool nights. And like I said, on the days where it's really sunny or we're getting above 15 Celsius, then I can lift the caps so that I don't cook the celery plants in there. But that should give them that little extra just to get them settled in out here. I didn't get all of my plants and seeds in the ground that I wanted to do today, but I think I've gotten a pretty good list going. I still would like to get my pea seeds sown, and my turnips and my kohlrabi, any of those kind of root crops. I can't think offhand. The wind's getting up here. But I think it's time for me to kind of gather up my things, get things tidied up here. Thanks for coming along in the garden with me. And hopefully this gave you some inspiration that you can get out and maybe get a few things planted even if you haven't hit your last frost date yet. And we'll see you next time in the garden. Thanks for watching. Bye. I can't believe I almost forgot to water those in. They would not have liked that. So I'll pop those hot caps back off, water them in, and water the seeds in, and then I'll be done out here ready to clean up.